He said he wouldn't. This morning, Trump told CNBC he did not want to extend the ceasefire. "We don't have that much time," he said. He was clear. The deadline was Wednesday. The ceasefire was over. And then, hours later, he changed his mind. On Tuesday afternoon, Trump posted on Truth Social that the ceasefire with Iran would be extended. Not for a day, not for a week, until Iran submits a unified proposal. No end date, no guarantee, no clarity. For Italy, this is not relief. This is a new kind of uncertainty. And Giorgia Meloni knows exactly what it means. When the war began on February 28th, Italy lost control of its energy future in a single night. Qatar declared force majeure. LNG tankers could not leave the Gulf. Italian gas storage, already at 30% capacity after a harsh winter, stopped filling up. Italian families began paying record prices at the pump. Italian businesses watched energy costs climb week by week. The European Central Bank raised its inflation forecast and cut its growth projections. Italy was at the top of the list of countries most exposed to the crisis. Then came the ceasefire on April 8th, 2 weeks, mediated by Pakistan, a fragile window. Meloni flew to Paris. She sat at the table with Macron, Starmer and Merz. She offered Italian naval frigates for the Hormuz mission. She tried to build a path back to stability. And this morning, it looked like that path was closing. Trump said the ceasefire was ending. He said Iran had no choice but to deal. He said the bombing would resume if talks failed. Italy held its breath. And then Trump reversed course. Based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, Trump wrote, "I have directed our military to continue the blockade and extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted." The ceasefire continues, but so does the naval blockade of Iranian ports. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. The 230 oil tankers sitting stranded inside the Gulf are still waiting. And Italy is still waiting with them. This is the trap Meloni cannot escape. When the deadline was coming, Italy faced the threat of immediate crisis. Rising energy prices, empty pipelines, a summer without gas. Now the deadline has been removed. But the blockade remains. The Hormuz closure continues. The uncertainty is not resolved. It is simply frozen. A ceasefire without a deal is not peace. It is a pause. And Italy cannot plan around a pause. Think about what this means in practical terms. Italy needs to refill its gas storage before summer. That window is closing. European gas storage levels are already at historic lows, 30% capacity, and the summer refill season is weeks away. If the blockade continues through May and June, Italy will enter next winter with critically low reserves. Energy prices will not fall. They may rise further. The IMF has already warned that global growth will take a hit even if the ceasefire holds. The cumulative supply disruption has already exceeded 500 million barrels of lost production. Even if the strait opens tomorrow, economists warn it could take months to claw back the lost supply. Italy cannot wait months, and Meloni cannot tell her voters to wait months, because those voters, 81% of whom approved of how she handled the crisis, approved of a prime minister who appeared to be steering Italy through a storm toward calmer waters. But the waters are not calm. Trump said this morning he didn't want to extend. Then he extended. Iran said it won't negotiate under threat. Then it stayed silent. Vice President Vance was flying to Pakistan. Then he wasn't. In a single Tuesday, the United States changed its position 3 times, and Italy had no say in any of it. This is the fundamental problem that the crisis has exposed. Meloni built her political identity on being the European leader who could work with Washington, the bridge between Trump and Brussels, the woman who could navigate the contradictions of the modern world. But a bridge only works when the road on both sides is stable. Right now, Washington is not stable. Trump reverses course in hours. His own vice president doesn't know if he's traveling to Pakistan. His ceasefire has no end date. His blockade has no clear objective. And Meloni, who staked her foreign policy credibility on her relationship with Trump, is watching from Rome as the most important decision for Italy's energy future is made in Washington, contested in Tehran, and mediated in Islamabad. Italy is not at that table. Italy was never at that table. And now, with the ceasefire extended indefinitely and the blockade continuing, the question is no longer whether the crisis will end on Wednesday. The question is whether it will end at all. And what happens to Meloni and to Italy if it doesn't? Subscribe to the Record Room because the next file is already open. There is a word for what happened on Tuesday in Washington: chaos. Not managed chaos, not deliberate ambiguity, not strategic uncertainty, simply chaos. A president who told CNBC at 8 in the morning that he would not extend the ceasefire posted on Truth Social at 3 in the afternoon that he was extending it. A vice president who was confirmed to be travelling to Pakistan was confirmed hours later to not be travelling to Pakistan. An Iranian delegation that Pakistani officials said was expected in Islamabad never confirmed its arrival. Markets responded. Oil prices swung. European gas futures moved. The cost of energy in Italy, already at record levels, fluctuated on the basis of posts on a social media platform. This is the world Meloni is governing in. She has 2,027 days until the next Italian election. That number is shrinking, and every day the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. Every day Italian gas storage fails to refill. Every day Italian families pay more at the pump. That number matters more. Because Meloni's 81% approval rating was not built on foreign policy expertise. It was not built on diplomatic skill. It was built on a simple proposition: that she is a strong leader who can protect Italy's interests in a dangerous world. If the blockade continues, if the gas prices stay high, if the summer arrives and Italy's reserves are still dangerously low, if the winter after that forces rationing or supply cuts, that proposition collapses. And Meloni, the woman who was the only European leader at Trump's inauguration, who called him brilliant, who said she would make the West great again with him, will have to explain to Italian voters why the relationship she built gave Italy no protection when it mattered most. Trump changed his mind 3 times on Tuesday. Italy had no say in any of it. That is the file that stays open. Subscribe to the Record Room because the next file is already open. There is one more thing worth noting. Trump's ceasefire extension statement said the Iranian government is seriously fractured. That phrase matters for Italy, because a fractured Iran is not just a diplomatic problem for Washington, it is an energy security problem for Rome. If Iran's government cannot agree internally on whether to negotiate, cannot produce a unified proposal, cannot send a delegation to Islamabad, then there is no one to make a deal with. And if there is no deal, there is no timeline for reopening the strait. And if there is no timeline, Italy cannot plan. Italy's economy minister has already warned that the energy crisis could push Italy into technical recession if the blockade persists through summer. The European Commission has advised member states to fill gas storage early, but filling storage requires gas to flow, and gas cannot flow through a closed strait. The extension of the ceasefire buys time, but it does not buy gas, and time, for Italy, is running out. Meloni has said Italy is not at war and does not want to enter the war. She has said Italy's constitution prohibits offensive military action. She has said the crisis must be resolved through diplomacy. All of that is true. But diplomacy requires both sides to show up. On Tuesday, Iran didn't show up, and Italy, which is not at the table, was never at the table, and has no way to force either side to the table, is left to watch. Subscribe to the Record Room because the next file is already open.